Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Nerd Age, where we discuss everything nerdy. My name is Mick, and with me, as always, are my co-hosts, Josh.
What's up?
Corey.
Howdy doody.
And Jonah.
Hey, everybody.
Howdy doody. Howdy doody, everybody. So Vanity Fair dropped a bunch of Star Wars stuff, a lot of news, a lot of images and everything, and we're gonna discuss it here. So I think, Josh, you have some details pulled up.
Yeah, I got some details. So the
deets. He's got the deets.
The dirty deets. So the article's called "The Rebellion Will Be Televised," and it's by Anthony Bresnikan. And then I think they've done these Vanity Fair shoots like for going back to the prequels. Even
Yeah.
I don't
Really?
I don't know if they're the original ones, but it's what's her name, Annie Leibovitz, that does does the shots and stuff. So it's kind of like a tradition for them to do the photo shoot and stuff like that. But there's a lot of like information that came out. There's been a lot of clickbait articles.
This is all about Obi-Wan? Or
It's
just Star Wars
Obi-Wan,
in general?
in general. So I've got it split up into a couple different categories. I'll talk about the shows first. So far they confirmed Andor is coming out summer 2022, which we kind of already knew.
Yeah.
Mando season 3 is end of 2022 or beginning of 2023. So probably that Book of Boba Fett type of release in
November,
January.
December.
Yeah.
And then Ahsoka is 2023. So that's what and then obviously we've got Obi-Wan coming out next week.
Yep.
But some of the stuff that kind of came out of the article, I would suggest reading it because there's a lot of cool like anecdotes about Diego.
You have to bootleg it, though, because it's behind a paywall.
Is it?
Yeah.
I got mine just fine.
I didn't. That's why I didn't read it.
Oh, really?
Really?
You start reading it, and then it's like, to continue, you must
Yeah, so
pay.
that's Vanity Fair subscription. You don't know you're paying for
I'm
it?
paying. I didn't know.
I was pro tip. You go to the site. If you're looking on a PC, you can look at its source code and you can read it for free.
There you go, bro. Pro tip.
Pro tips.
I just have used my phone.
Yeah,
so.
true.
But yeah, there's like some cool anecdotes about. There's specifically some ones about Rosario Dawson talking about basically spoiling Anakin coming back for Ahsoka. Like she retweeted that stuff.
Oh, nice.
And everyone was mad about it. But so specifically for Andor, what he said about it was that it's kind of a story about an immigrant story. So his home planet gets destroyed, and it's basically him running away from the Empire as they kind of take over the galaxy, essentially. So it's basically about him trying to not join the fight, because basically the writer's like, how does he get to the point for sacrificing himself? Like, how does he get to that point? So that's kind of some of the details they talked about, like the first season. That's kind of what it's going to look like.
Was any of that alluded to in Rogue One at all?
Yeah, well, he says,
I've been in this
Since I was 6 years old.
Why are we both talking?
because we were talking like Diego.
Yeah, that's right.
So that was the kind of like the Andor specific stuff that they talked about. They didn't really say much about Ahsoka. It was just kind of like, hey, it's happening. They talked about Dave Filoni basically doing all the stuff. One of the things that they were mentioning about Obi-Wan, which came out in another article too, is Deborah Chow said that it's a deep character focus on Obi-Wan. Obviously, she kind of likened it to being like almost like a love story between Obi-Wan and Anakin. Like they loved each other, and
You were my brother.
I loved you.
I loved you.
and it's so it's the story of Obi-Wan finding out that Anakin's still alive. This is one of those kind of like topics that kind of always, like, I saw a lot of articles like, oh, Deborah Chow says it's like the Joker and
she
Logan.
dropped the Joker and Logan.
So she said it's like Joker and Logan. So that's like,
so basically a horror movie.
yeah, basically a horror movie.
Oh, okay.
But I feel like people just latch onto that
Yeah.
and run with
Details.
it. But it's like, no, it's like a character focused story. So I guess we'll find out next week.
Yeah.
And then some of the other stuff that came out about Mandalorian and stuff like that is basically backstory about how Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni got put on the same project. So which I think they've mentioned before, but Jon Favreau was interested in doing some Star Wars stuff. He started writing all the scripts like without being contracted or anything like that. And then he was like, I want to do Mandalorian stuff. And then they were like, well, Dave Filoni has a project doing Mandalorian stuff, so you guys should talk about it. And so that's kind of how they got put together. But one of the clickbait titles that came out was like, Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau debated ferociously about whether or not to put Baby Yoda in it.
Did they say who
that was
was
such a-
on what side?
Dave Filoni was the one that was like, George Lucas explicitly wanted Yoda to be a mystery.
Yeah.
So that's why his side what he was on.
And this is all allegedly
Right.
like
Well, this is exactly
Yeah.
what Kathleen Kennedy is saying. She's like, hey,
so it wasn't. It actually did.
this
happen.
is actually happening. And
Okay.
they
Right,
even talked to Dave Filoni.
It's like it's exaggerated.
It's exaggerated.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
They're like, oh, they were at each other's throats.
Yeah.
You know, people say
Screaming match.
that.
Yeah.
But really, when you read the article, Dave Filoni is just like, I'm just like really cautious about
Sure.
the legacy that
Yes.
George Lucas has, which is why he's so good at what he does.
Yeah, that makes sense for coming from him. 'Cause,
Yeah. And then there was just some stuff about the volume. So like early on, back behind the scenes stuff, that they had James Cameron come in because he was filming Avatar, and they were like, if this passes the James Cameron test, then we can definitely move forward with it.
And he stole their technology.
Yeah, he stole
and
exactly. He's like, this looks like trash.
scrap it, redo it, and then he took it.
And then the last kind of, well, the show that we know about, The Acolyte, the writer was basically talking about it's 100 years before Phantom Menace, which is, I think there was rumored, but it's finally confirmed. And she describes it as a mystery thriller. And basically, how do we get to the point where in Phantom Menace, like there's a Sith that's infiltrated the Senate, basically.
Cool.
I like that.
And so she talks about how the Jedi wear the white robes with the gold on them. So it's imagery we've seen from the High Republic books that are, or what is they called the High Republic?
Yeah.
I forget what they're.
The High Republic, yeah.
Yeah, the new books that have been coming out. And so she talks about that, and she's like, "Well, they're white because they're not getting their hands dirty anymore. So how did we get to this point?" So that was kind of interesting. That they're just casting for that show, so nothing really has gone into production yet.
Yeah.
And then the last news that came out with was the kind of announcement of a new show that they're working on. So it's called, the code name is Grammar Rodeo, and it's the John Watts show that he's making.
Okay.
So it takes place in The Mandalorian after Return of Jedi, that type of time period. They're casting 4 kids. And they're saying that it's supposed to be like a throwback to the Amblin type of coming of age movies, Goonies, Stranger Things.
Spielberg type.
Yeah,
of
that type of old, that type of feel good coming of age story. So they're actively casting for that. So I think that's the first we've kind of heard of that. So that was on the show side of things. Any thoughts from you guys about anything?
That one I think would be cool because there hasn't really been that type of like young adventure type of journey or experience in the Star Wars universe yet. So, and I'm a big fan of those, Goonie type of movies. So
It makes me a little nervous because I feel like,
because it just young kid.
yeah, well,
I hate kids.
no, I just
It's very
feel
different.
like
It's very different.
I just feel like it has to be done a certain way for it to be good. I think Stranger Things really like knocked it out of the park, and then Stranger Things hit, and then other people were like, "Oh, let's do it this style." So I feel like there's a fine line between being like too kiddie and being good. Does that make sense?
I get what you're saying. I think about was it Fallen? Is it Fallen Star or Lost Star? The
Lost Stars.
Lost Stars. With them as kids in the beginning of the book, and they have their little adventures and they're practicing to go to the academy. Like that type of stuff, I think could work in a show.
Yeah, like if it's like Lost Stars. I mean, I love Lost.
What if it's young Ben Solo, Jonah?
It's not going to be young Ben Solo.
I know.
And
So I said, what if?
I wouldn't. I don't think I'd want it to be connected. Like, I want it to be a separate thing. But I'm just saying, like, if it's, I don't know. It has to be done well. And I feel like with something like that, it's easy for it to, if it's not done right, for it to just be like, for example, Resistance. So Resistance was the TV show that was geared more towards little kids. And so there's Rebels, who was also kind of geared towards that way, but Rebels was done in a way that kind of, like Dave Filoni, we talked about Dave Filoni, he does such a good job. It was done in a way that, yes, it was geared towards kids, but it had a lot of lore and a lot of things that just made fans be like, wow, this is amazing. Resistance was tried to do similar things with connecting things, but for me, it didn't hit. It was too kiddie and it went down a road. So that's my only concern, is like, there's a fine line to do it where it works, like Stranger Things did, and other stuff like that. And then it can easily teeter onto the other side where it's just like, not for me. So that's my only concern. I'm like, okay, I mean, John Watts is good. He's a good director. And so I'm sure like he's going to do a good job, but I'll have to see like the scripts and what the storyline is like. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel like those type of movies are like Goonies and Stranger Things aren't overly kiddish though. You know what I mean? So I don't think you have to worry about it being like it's like Barney in space. You know what I mean? Like I feel like those type of stories, yes, the main characters are children, but a lot of times like what they're dealing with are more adult themes. It's like growing up, right? It's not, those movies aren't necessarily like, especially now, like Stranger Things is pretty dark and serious. I wouldn't necessarily call it a kid's show.
Right, but the only thing I'm saying is, when's the last time there was a Goonies movie that
Stranger
you would?
Things.
Well, okay, but it's been a while since there was like like back in the day, they would make those,
E.T.
and I feel like yeah, back in the day they were good, but I feel like there's a lot of stuff that was
Harry
been done
Potter
on Disney. I'll give you a perfect example: the Mighty Ducks show that they did.
The Mighty Ducks, the original movies.
Yes, what I'm saying is
Free Willy.
If you can go on Disney
Karate
Plus,
Kid.
you can go on Disney Plus.
Cobra Kai.
You can go on Disney Plus and look at shows that Disney has done that are meant to be more for like coming of age, and they're not very good. Stuff like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, like those are coming of age stories, and they're not good. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah,
there's
but
You're not the target
recent-
audience though.
What I'm saying is there's recent stuff that's been coming of age that has not hit the standard of traditionally like
You a big
Goonies, good
Diary of
stuff
a
like
Wimpy
that.
Kid fan? You're
No,
really
but
upset
Maya's
about the
has-
adaptation?
Maya has watched them, and it's that kind of stuff. There's been plenty of movies that Maya watches that are geared towards like young adult stuff like that just doesn't hit the mark. That's my only concern, because that's a formula that's been done, and it could easily teeter to a side where it's just like not good. That's all I'm saying.
I understand what you're saying. I think just the fact though that it is still in the Star Wars universe, it is from a director that I think has done well with the Spider-Man films, and has knowledge of, making something that is for kids, but is still enjoyable for like older age group. And I don't know. I have faith.
I could see.
Are you just scared it'll go more towards like the new like Miss Marvel show, like more that type of?
I'm just saying, like, I'm interested in it, but I'm afraid it's really easy for it. There's a fine line with shows like this. They teeter easily. Like, it's hard to get a show like Stranger Things. Like, they hit it out of the park, but it's a hard formula to solve because it's.
Is there
So
someone?
that's my only concern. Like I'm saying, like the Mighty Duck show, like all these stuff that they've done, reboots that they've done on Disney Plus that have been like, oh, look at this old show that you used to like, and now we're going to redo it. Like, it's really easy. Like Boy Meets World, they did the Girl Meets World kind of thing. That kind of stuff when it's done a certain
Fuller
way.
House. Or was that wasn't Disney though?
Well,
But yeah.
there's been several things. Netflix
they've
has done several
rebooted
shows like
everything.
that.
Yeah.
So that's my only concern. It's like you have to be careful.
Is there someone else that like could be involved that would give you more faith in, or is it just the fact
Zack
that
Snyder.
it's this type of?
Can you imagine?
If
Zack
Dave
Snyder with a
Filoni
kid
was
movie?
doing it, I would be like, okay, he's got it. But that, like I said, a perfect example for me is Rebels versus Resistance. Dave Filoni didn't do Resistance, and it went really kiddish, and I couldn't do it. Whereas Rebels was still geared towards that audience, but done in a way that was like, I love this show. So I just think that's the difference.
Do you guys think that Resistance actively hurt the IP of Star Wars as a whole?
No.
I think it was because I think the goal was for kids.
So if it doesn't hurt it, then I guess it's just a different media type, right? It's just for kids. It's just a kid show.
Yeah.
And as long as it doesn't hurt the IP, I think there's not much wrong with it. I'm interested to know what is the intended, like who is it intended for?
Right. And I don't think it's like this is our kids show that we're going to make.
Okay,
You know what
okay.
I mean? I don't think that's it.
Okay.
I think it's a throwback to that type of movie.
Okay. Then I think you have valid concern.
Well, and I'm just saying, like, I'll use a perfect example. Well, it's not really perfect, but for me, it's all going to depend on, for example, I think Phantom Menace would have been much better if they would have cast an older kid as Anakin. And that's hindsight, like not saying anything
like
against
middle school or something like that.
well,
like age,
well,
like
just
10?
older, 15.
Oh.
14 or 15. I think it would have worked so much
You want a
better
teenager.
with his love for Padme and
yeah,
all
that
that kind of
was
stuff.
weird.
I think it would have been
Nothing wrong
more
with that.
epic in a certain way as opposed to having an 8-year-old fly all this. Like, I just think it would have worked.
Are you an angel?
So that just
What?
it's all going to depend on the casting because you can have, I don't know, like I said, Stranger Things cast perfect kids that just
I think
worked.
they're casting the Stranger Things kids.
So I'm just saying,
Just for you, John.
I just think having kids like lead a show is really hard because you have to have quality actors and you have to believe it. I don't know. I just think it's a lot harder to do that than to get have a guy dressed up as Boba Fett doing cool things. It's a lot harder sell to have like little kids being like coming of age story, like figuring out stuff about Jedi. Maybe one's force sensitive and that kind of stuff. It's harder to do with little kids.
What if they cast a bunch of like adult actors and just de-age them? Huh?
There you go.
You in?
There you go. Or little people. I'd be done with that.
Okay.
They're on a planet of little people.
Okay, sounds good. Just Warwick Davis.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
the other aspect of it, I think I wish I had more information was the Ahsoka tidbit of that.
Yeah.
Because they didn't really say much.
Right. All they said is like, hey, we're working on it.
Yeah.
Bro, it just started filming.
I know, but I just wish they maybe gave a feel or like a little teaser.
Well, we know Anakin's in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, so that was it on the side of the shows. They talked about the movies a little bit. So some of the stuff that came out of talking to Kathleen Kennedy about it. The big one that everyone's talking about is she says that if she would have learned, she wished they would have learned sooner that you can't do certain things with legacy characters. So she's referencing Solo. And she's talking about like, well, maybe we shouldn't have recast.
She's not referencing Luke Skywalker.
No. So she was talking about like there's certain things
He wasn't
like
recast.
You can't
recasting.
do.
You can't really recast a legacy
Harrison
character.
Ford.
Yeah.
So yes and no, but people are blowing it out of
people are
proportion.
blowing it.
Solo though.
I really
Yeah,
like Solo.
Most of the time, people I talk to, they love it.
I thought Solo was great. I loved it, and I know that's their thought about it. I just totally disagree with that.
But obviously, she's basing this off of feedback, right?
Right.
well, and the fact that she's saying that that's like a big reason why it didn't do well, I just don't think.
Right. I don't think
put
that's
it
why
all
it
on that.
didn't do well either.
Yeah, so we were Mick and I were at church and we were talking to, shout out to Anne who listens to the podcast, and she brought
out.
this up. And she was like, it's funny that Kathleen Kennedy would say that when they're a week out of the Obi-Wan show coming out with Ewan McGregor. And I'm like, it's a little,
It is different.
It's different.
It's different.
But
That's
like
different.
Like Mick was saying, I don't think that was the issue with why Solo did bad. I think people weren't interested in it. Like, it came right after Last Jedi, right? It was like
Yeah, it was
really
6
short
months after.
Yeah.
And it was on the tails of Endgame and someone else.
Yes, it
So
came
they
like
didn't get any marketing at all.
Yes.
Disney was
because they
pushing
had to wait to
Endgame.
market it because of
Yeah.
Endgame. But I do think there were a lot of people that were upset with the casting of Solo. So I do think there is, like, for us, I liked Solo and I thought Alden Ehrenreich did a great job. But there was a lot of people that didn't like it. I remember back to the times when I'd listened to Jedi Council on Collider with Christian Harloff and stuff like that. there were arguments all the time about people being like, he's not a good Harrison Ford. They should have gotten
See, that's their problem. They're comparing it to Harrison
the
Ford.
Gruber. What's
Hans Gruber.
Mick
no?
Gruber?
What was the guy's name?
Which guy? The guy in
guy that
something in the
played-
Age of Adelaide.
Yeah, the guy that played young Harrison Ford, and looks like people were like he should have gotten him. People wanted the guy from
Harrison Gruber.
That's his actual
Kingsman. What's
Yeah,
I can't remember names now.
Egerton.
Taron
Egerton.
Egerton. So there were a lot of people that didn't like the casting, and after the movie came out, there were a lot of people that said that they couldn't see him as Harrison Ford. So I do think there is people that reacted negatively to Solo because of the casting. Now,
I just felt like that was a minority, though, of the complaints out there for the movie.
I think
there
it
was a
was
lot of
healed
it.
by time. I think the initial shock was negative
Right.
feedback, and then as you go on, people are like, "Oh yeah, it was a good movie."
because you had a lot of people that, even when Solo came out, a lot of people that were like did deep fakes or stuff like that, or tried to put the other guy in there. Like that was really big that was happening. So they like put the other guy's face and like, how much more better would have the movie been with this? You know, like people were doing that all the time.
I mean, you'll get that.
So
with
I just
everything.
think
I guess
it
what
was
I
there.
thought that was like the main thing was like a bunch of people, a large amount of the Star Wars audience did not like The Last Jedi, and there was a bunch of stupid like, oh, we're boycotting Star Wars now because blah blah blah. Like that's what
Kathleen Kennedy ruined Star
Kennedy
Wars.
ruined, like that's what I thought like the main thing was. Where
I think that was there, but I don't think that's a big number of people.
I don't know. I mean, I think there was a lot of stuff going on with that movie, like behind the scenes, and it was, I think, kind of a perfect storm.
comment below and tell us what you think. What
Yeah.
was the reason why Solo didn't do well?
So does that mean that it's like basically they're closing the book on, hey, you can't do anything else with these legacy characters
Well-
if you can't recast them?
Well, I think
And
now
they're not here, or
Well, now they're doing the deep fake
yeah.
stuff.
Right.
And so they're using
So they're not
Luke.
recasting.
right.
They're still using that. So I think that's kind of a loophole. She did say that the movie saga needs to move away from legacy characters,
Yeah.
which makes sense because they're
I
all
mean,
dead.
at this point,
They're all dead.
yeah.
So
Hey, Harrison
Makes
Ford isn't dead yet. Neither is Mark Hamill. So
I think
Neither
he's
is
talking about the
R2
characters.
or-
Characters, bro. You're the only one who took it that way.
yeah.
You're
Jeez.
messed up, dude.
But yeah, so we'll see. Speaking of the movies, she said that one of the things that they're struggling to find is someone that's as committed as Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni on the film side or on the movie side.
Sure.
so let Dave Filoni do the movies.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
what's wrong
I
with that?
don't understand why they don't do that.
so we'll
Put
see
him in
what
charge of it
happens.
all.
Because what Kathleen Kennedy says is like, you can't just show up and shoot a movie and then peace out kind of a thing. You have to be, which I think is good.
Duh. Jeez, Louise.
Because like we talk about the issue with the
how
sequel
many
trilogies.
years after?
Yeah, and having someone to do like a, concise story, stay involved the whole way and not just kind of pop in,
Right.
pop out. And so they did mention, what's going on with Rian Johnson's trilogy. And she's basically like, well, he's super busy with Netflix.
Well, he's doing like two Knives Out movies, right?
Yeah, he's got the deal with Netflix that he's dealing on. So she's like, he's really busy with that. And so it just hasn't worked out yet. She does say that I think the deal that he signed was for an idea. It wasn't like he already has his 3 movies set and they're ready to go. It was a deal to develop Star Wars ideas. So she's like, we brainstorm a little bit, but he hasn't really. He's busy with other stuff right now.
I've got 2 solutions for Kathleen Kennedy.
Okay.
One, I would be fully committed to
Oh, yeah?
doing the film. Like, you put me on that? No. But, there is somebody that would
Okay.
be fully committed. One, Zachary Snyder.
Oh, jeez.
Snydery.
Just
But
move
you guys
over his
said-
Rebel Moon.
You guys said his
Movie
idea. You didn't
to,
like his idea of to do a Star Wars movie, so it's your loss, guys. No,
Wait, why
Rebel
not?
Moon.
Oh yeah, they turned him down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He
that's right.
went to them with
That's
a
why
pitch
he's
for
doing
an
Rebel
idea,
Moon. Yeah.
and they were like, "Ah, no, we it was too similar to something else." I guess that's what they said.
Yeah, Star Wars.
Well, yeah, it was a Star
Your New
Wars
Hope
movie.
was like, there's an emperor and there's a rebel princess. Hear me out, guys.
on a sand planet.
And then, so yeah, so we'll see what happens with the movies. She does talk about like they were taking a break from movies. They've been focusing on TV shows, but they do have a roadmap for shows moving forward. She said they're probably moving away from trilogies. She's like, I don't know if we'll use, you say the word trilogy, like maybe we're moving away from that. But next up is Taika Waititi's movie. That's the next one up. Rogue Squadron is still in development. They're doing rewrites. Patty Jenkins is apparently working on it, so it's down the line. And then Kevin Feige's movie, which at the time this article came out, it wasn't confirmed. They asked her about it, like, oh, is Kevin Feige working on a movie? And she was like, oh, he's pretty busy, nothing really going on. But then this past week, the writer, what is his name? It's Waldron? Michael Waldron. So he's the head writer for Loki. He said he's working with Kevin Feige on a Star Wars show or a movie.
Pass.
So Jonah can be like, this doesn't connect to anything. I don't get anything.
Where do you go to school?
Yeah, exactly. So what do you guys think about the future of the movies for Star Wars?
Honestly, I'll always be excited for a Star Wars movie, but the TV shows have just been so good that I haven't really been missing a Star Wars movie. I know that you say, it's a special thing to go see a movie, Star Wars in the theater, and I totally agree. But at the same time, I'm not itching for one right now. If they come out and they say, hey, there's going to be one next year, I'm all for it. I'm there. But I mean, the fact that we get Obi-Wan next week, I'm good.
I'll go. I think that the shows are great. I think they are. But movies are a whole different tier for me. It's just a step up. I know that you guys could debate that it's the same quality. You get more time, you get more face time. But I don't know, man. There's just something special about a movie, and I think that just the production and the writing is just like, it's just because you only have so much time, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be very purposeful behind every line. And I don't know. It just feels like it's just a higher quality form of entertainment. And I don't know. Just for me, movies are just super special. And they are synonymous with trilogies with Star Wars, especially Star Wars movies. There's just like theater, cinema and Star Wars. It goes together like peanut butter and jam.
Yeah. I agree with you.
So that's my take on it. I still, obviously, I'm super happy that we get Obi-Wan. And it's super cool. Still would have taken a movie. You know what I mean? But I could totally see. But we get more time. That's cool. It's just, it's maybe just a preference of mine.
And I'll say, like you said, the shows are great, and I love the shows. But there is something special about anticipating a movie dropping, going in theaters, and not only that, but the opening crawl. None of the shows have had that. There's something special about Star Wars in the movies. I don't know. To me, it's I know the shows have been doing well and they've been good stories, but for me, it's if I could get a movie every Christmas, a Star Wars movie every Christmas, that's what I'd want.
Okay, you get a movie every Christmas, but Taika Waititi's making all of them. You take that deal
With Kevin Feige.
Oosh. Here's my compromise. Here in my perfect world, this is what happens. They take a little bit of little suggestion from how animes do it, where they make their season.
It's anime.
Anime, yeah, that's how Joby does it, idiot. And then they'll do a season, and then the next year they'll do a full movie, and that's so cool because that's an epic way to mix it up, and then you can have best of both worlds at that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I could honestly see the Star Wars shows currently do that model of
love that.
Hey, we're heading up to everyone's getting together, we're taking on this bad guy. It's a movie, and we're gonna everyone. It's a crossover event, and we're gonna.
They call it Endgame.
Exactly. But I could see them doing that.
I don't need a crossover, by the way. I'm just saying of that season, it's a special condensed. Very special version of it.
But yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, I feel like I do like the movies. I'll take both. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really like the shows, I'm glad that we're getting a Obi-Wan show versus a Obi-Wan movie. I think just because scale wise, I don't think the Obi-Wan movie needed to be like theatrical. You know what I mean? It's a smaller story. I don't need it on the big screen.
I think for what I'm assuming the story will be, like, I think that it suits better as a TV show.
Yeah, definitely. You disagree?
Yeah, of course.
No, I'm not saying I
2-hour Obi-Wan movie versus what are we getting? 8 hours,
at least.
6 hours?
See, but that justification, it totally is legitimate, but I don't think it's different because it's like quantity does not mean better than quality. You know what I mean? Like I would prefer quality over quantity.
Because
that's just my preference.
I'll give you an example. Like I can think back to some Mando episodes that I'm like, yeah, that was a cool episode, but I'll never watch it again. Like it was interesting. So I feel like, yes, they throw in or Boba Fett episodes. Like I'm like, yeah, that episode was like 30 minutes of meh, and then like 10 minutes of okay, that was cool. So I think if you can make a good movie. I know with the sequel trilogy, some people really like them, other people hate them, some people are in the middle. But I think there's been some incredible Star Wars movies. Like you think of the original trilogy, that was. I think you can still aspire to make a great movie. I think they could have done an awesome Obi-Wan movie in 2.5, 2:15, that I would have loved to see in theaters. That's more streamlined.
You don't get to watch the show now.
I'm just saying, like,
so
yeah, you're not invited over anymore.
This show could be incredible, and I'm hoping it is. But I'm thinking that there's probably going to be scenes that I'm like, it's not going to be a home run on every scene. That might maybe it's like, oh, maybe that's filler. I don't know. So I'm wondering after the show's done, depending on how far they go into other directions or other characters, I could be like, well, they could have taken that character out and just done Obi-Wan finding out that Anakin's still alive and kind of streamlined it in 2 hours and have a movie feel where the anticipation for that would have been off the charts. To me, it's like, it's hard to be able to match, even though I'm really enthusiastic and excited for the show. I feel if it was a movie, I would be way more excited because there's just, like Corey said, there's something special about a Star Wars movie in theaters.
Okay, I'll ask the question. Because I think they're making bank from subscriptions, and so this is going to be what's moving forward just because it's consistent money, very reliable,
right.
and you're going to drive subscriptions. I guess my question is, what about maybe only certain stories are more suited for TV show versus like a more epic scale thing is for movies? So like Boba Fett is very well suited for a series because it's more episodic and there's a lot of stuff, a lot of movement they needed to do to develop these characters and stuff like that. So I don't think the Boba Fett series would have done well in a movie. I think totally could have, but I think that subject matter does better as a series.
Absolutely.
Same with Mandalorian. Just because of how much stuff they had to cover. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Because you have to have both. Especially just how media is going. So
yeah, I'm not saying that I don't want movies anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I don't want shows anymore.
Well, that kind of sounds like what you guys are saying.
No, you said Deborah Chow can take her show and shove it up her butt. That's what you said.
I mean, it all comes down to what the story is at the end of the day. If it fits right with a 6-episode series, then they did a good job.
I guess my only concern is as they keep doing this, just going forward, will there ever be an experience where we just see lower quality production and storytelling because you have more time to kind of make up for mistakes or kind of fill in the gaps? Because I'm kind of seeing that with these Marvel TV shows that we're seeing where they're not being as like purposeful with all their decisions, and it's
She-Hulk.
there just feels like it's just not the complete package that I want. And so I'm afraid that as as we go on, it gets less special.
I'll give you an
and less like high quality.
I mean, I think so far, at least,
what I'm afraid of.
At least with the Star Wars shows, I think that they've done a good job.
Yeah, but that's,
I think and again, it just depends on what the story is, who's behind it, who's writing it. The fact that like good people have been involved with the Star Wars shows
do you
so
think
far.
Boba Fett was to the tier of quality? You don't think so?
No.
Tier
It's
quality
slipped.
of what?
Like of what you should expect from a Star Wars show or movie. Like, do you actually? Do you think
I would
that
say
actually met?
it's weaker than like the stuff that we've got with Mandalorian. I don't think it was terrible, but it wasn't like
To me, there was clearly a step down in Boba Fett than the Mando, and it was even evident in the Mando episodes that were more Mando centric. The quality was higher. Like that, I think it was episode 2, the speeder chase. Like that set looked like a set, and the speed
looks like a set.
and this. Well, I'm like
Right, I get what you're saying.
Speed
Yeah,
of the
that's not
speeders.
good,
We
yeah.
talked about that when that first came out. The speed of the speeders. Some of the actors in that, I did feel like it slipped a little farther down quality wise. Even people have made a little mock up of like the end of the series. You know, where it's like throwing the fruit to the guy, and they're all like, it's like it looks like a 90s sitcom. You know, where and they put like the Full House. Like where they're all like getting together and like I do feel like Mando, like Book of Boba Fett slipped in quality,
But everything else has been pretty
and
good.
part of that is I feel because they're going to invest in bigger shows. I think the Obi-Wan show is going to look really good
Yeah, me
because
too.
it's only a 6-parter.
Yeah.
They're investing in it. I think the Ahsoka series is going to look good. I just feel like that's going to happen with certain shows, is that some are going to get a bigger budget to do stuff.
Yeah.
Like Mando season 3 is going to have a bigger budget than Boba did. I think you could tell the same thing with the guys that did the parts, like when they'd go into the Fennec Shand gets repaired and all that stuff. Like there were certain scenes that I was like, this feels cheaper than they've done in other stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. What do you think, Josh? You think shouldn't matter?
No.
Smooth sailing.
No,
so
I agree.
far?
There's some things in Book of Boba Fett, but I feel like it's the same people making the show. You know what I mean? Like for that specific example, the same crew that worked on the Mandalorian episodes worked on the Boba Fett episodes.
But if you like,
So I don't-
But there's a budget difference. It doesn't just because the same
In the
people,
same show.
Yes,
No. You were talking about the Mandalorian specific episodes in Book of Boba Fett.
Oh,
so
yeah.
where it's the same show.
yes, but there's
It's the
certain
same people working on it.
there's certain episodes that get bigger budget. When you go and itemize a shit, you're like, how much do we need to pull off this episode?
We
Like
gotta get the fruit in there, you know.
no, but
There's
they're,
no way-
they,
No,
they
I-
do that thing with
logistically,
that's
that
what a
makes
budget
sense.
is.
Yeah.
So they figure out this episode only needs this. You could tell the Mandalorian episodes, the whole ring thing, like they're out in space. Everything from those episodes was bigger and you could tell had a bigger budget. Whereas other Boba Fett episodes, you could tell didn't have the same budget. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I think they invested more in those Mando episodes because they knew this is going to connect to season 3. This is our cash cow.
Well, Tatooine versus a planet in space on an asteroid or whatever it was. Like, obviously, you need more CGI for
Right.
that versus.
But even
we're on
the
a set.
even the Luke episode, like, of course it's
Banger.
Luke, but you're gonna have like the quality of that, all the what all the droids look like, everything, the lighting on the spaceships, all that kind of stuff was much better because the budget was much higher. So I'm just saying, like, when you make a budget for a show, there's going to be certain shows. Well, Corey said Marvel's shows. She-Hulk, the quality of that compared to a Moon Knight or the Loki series is completely different because the budgets are there's probably a big difference. So I'm just saying that's going to happen with shows.
I just think it's funny that you're pointing this out, but dang right, those scooters were expensive to customize.
dude.
Okay, that's where they
That's
blew
what
all
they
their
used all the
budget.
budget on.
Yeah, they blew all their money on
That's
that.
why they had to keep putting them in the shows. Like, hey, we built these. So they got to go.
They didn't want to spend it on CGI.
And they're like, hey, we need that guy to do a little spin and shoot too in slow motion.
That's right, baby. Man, well, I'm excited for Kenobi to come out this week, though. I'm pumped. It's gonna be really good. Yeah. But was there anything other?
No, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Sick. Well, Star Wars begins again. Guys.
That's right.
I'm excited. But yeah, that'll be sweet.